I'm excited for you to enjoy this conversation with Karolina Rzadkowolska. Karolina is going to share how dry January was a bit of a stepping stone for her into the world of sobriety. It allowed her to explore going alcohol-free for 31 days to see what kind of impact that would have on her life. Well, she's now been sober for almost a year, and she's going to share with us her new podcast called Euphoric that she co-hosts with her friend Danielle. She also has a blog and an awesome new program that she's going to share towards the end of our conversation. So here we go with Karolina.
Here, we want to show you what's possible in the world of sobriety. We introduce you to the various tools, programs, and resources available, because there are way more options than you may even realize. We want you to find the one that works for you.
And we do it through people who share their pathway to recovery and will help you find your path to freedom. Because getting sober can feel hard enough. You don't have to do it alone. I'm Sarah Roberts.
And I'm Roger DeVoe, and this is Sobriety Starts Here.
Well, I am very excited to be having this conversation. I'm going to try not to mess up her name with Karolina Rzadkowolska. And that's the only time I'm going to be saying your last name during this conversation, Karolina. I am so happy to welcome you. Welcome.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for the invitation to share my story and just talk about the happiness that you can discover in a sober life.
Well, and I love that you're saying that. That's exactly where we're going to start, with the happiness factor. And what's fun is that you've created a podcast called Euphoric. And I think that that really lends itself to the way you feel in sobriety. And it's almost contagious, just after even just talking with you for a few minutes, how excited you are about your recovery. So why don't we start out with you telling us about the podcast, who your co-host is, what you two talk about, and then we'll start getting into your story a little bit, and that'll bring us full circle all the way to how you got into your lifestyle now.
Sure. So when I first was launching on my alcohol-free life, kind of from the outside perspective, you have this kind of view of what sobriety is, and it's grim and it's gray and it's full of dark meetings and it's kind of this clenching and this one day at a time kind of mentality. And that's all I had heard, from kind of either movies or TV shows or kind of a few people that trickled in my life that were in that kind of lifestyle. And when I myself was going, through my kind of sober experiment, I was discovering the complete opposite. Not only was I discovering kind of a happiness that I hadn't felt probably since about childhood or young adulthood, I was discovering new kind of experiences, new passions. My neurotransmitters rebalanced, and I actually felt, that pink cloud of just happiness. I was discovering classical music again and just kind of smashing all these other self-limiting beliefs that I had about myself. And really, I came to this point of just feeling so much happier than I had ever in my life, that it was euphoria, right? And so I started a blog, and then I started a podcast with my co-host. Her name's Danielle, and she's also from San Diego. And we met each other and just kind of were abuzz about this lifestyle. We both approached our sobriety through these kind of logic-based approaches that really kind of had us question why we even think we like drinking in the first place, and kind of debunk all of that altogether. So both of us kind of right away, almost from the very get-go, maybe a month or two into it, really discovered that we hated the past version of ourselves that was, at a party looking for a drink or feeling hungover, or just felt like they weren't complete without something, and really fell in love with this new version of ourselves that was kind of breaking past those self-limiting beliefs. And so every time we got together, we just had so much to talk about, so much to say about what it means to be alcohol free, and this kind of new approach of it actually being a very empowering, very healthy lifestyle choice.
I love that. It's funny when you were saying that that you sort of hated that old version of yourself. I think about it slightly differently. I think about that old version of myself. I have such compassion for her. I have, I almost feel sorry for her, really, in a lot of ways. I feel like, oh my gosh, you poor thing. If only you had known that it didn't have to be that way. And I think a lot of us, feel that way, where we just sort of feel sorry for that old version of ourselves. Not that we want to change it in any way, because it brought us to where we are, and without the dark, we don't get the light. But I think there's that feeling of, yeah, we kind of do hate that old version of ourselves, but really more so even just feeling compassion for that old version. How about you?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think I look back and I just saw a lot of insecurity. And especially even when I was drinking, I thought when I got to a party or some other social kind of dinner party that I had a drink to relieve my insecurity, to relieve this idea that I couldn't socialize, or I was a little awkward when I talked with people, you know, these kind of deep beliefs I had about myself because I was an introvert. And the opposite actually was true. And I really thought about it. Anytime I drank at a party, I was like, oh my gosh, am I too buzzed? Do I have wine teeth? You know, what did I say last night? Like, did they notice that I went for another glass? Like, all of it actually compounded my insecurity. And when I really like looked into it in that way, I could see that, you know, all of it, it wasn't just socializing that, you know, I felt insecure. It was so much more. It was, can I even discover fun for myself on the weekends without a drink? Can I just be comfortable in my own skin without a drink? So yeah, that past version of me definitely was rife with insecurity. And not to say that that completely goes away, but I think you get so in touch with a more vulnerable self that you honor your truths more, and you kind of, you take care of yourself in a better way. And I think that that breeds confidence.
Oh my gosh, how well said. When we take care of ourselves, that breeds confidence. I totally agree with that. So I imagine that on your podcast, you're exploring all of these bigger topics, and then you also interview other people that have gone through a recovery journey as well.
True. So we're about 8 episodes in and continue to add every 2 weeks. We have interviews. Our next interview was with Taryn Strong from She Recovers.
Yay! She's
so
awesome.
Incredible. Has such wisdom just coming out of her. So we're really excited about that. But yeah, we basically just cover a topic about, you know, alcohol. And we're both about 30 something. We're both in San Diego. We're both in this very kind of brewery heavy capital, you know, where young people like us go out on the weekends, and alcohol is just such a accessory, you know, to this seemingly glamorous life. And so we're just trying to show a different way of how much more fun we're having, how much happier we are, and how much more just in tune we are with ourselves through this path.
So I'm older than you. I'm 46. So I'm a little bit farther out of the sort of party scene. I'm wondering, before we get into your story, are you finding that you're connecting with more and more young people who are looking to adopt the alcohol-free lifestyle, or are you still big time in the minority, you and Danielle?
You know, I think we're about in our early 30s, and I think like that's a really good time when people start kind of questioning themselves and are kind of growing up past some of those insecurities they have when they're in their 20s, and growing up past these ideas that you have to do something just to fit in or just because society tells you to. So I think that this age is actually I do see a lot of people kind of questioning the role of alcohol in their life. I wouldn't say like in the 21 area necessarily. That's a little, I wouldn't have had the maturity to even, you know, approach my life in the right way at that point. But yeah, I really do see a huge movement of people just asking themselves, who told me that I needed this to be happy, and why do I believe it?
What makes me excited, even as you were talking about that, about the 21-year-olds, we can't expect them to already be figuring it out. What I'm hopeful, though, of is people that are, say, your age that are planning on having children. I did not choose to have children in my life, but for people like you that might choose to end up having children, you are therefore going to be, you know, all of you women that are watching, and you, Karolina, yourself, and Danielle, and if you decide to have babies, you're going to raise them in an alcohol-free lifestyle where it's just the norm for your family to not drink alcohol. So I wonder if we extrapolate, you know, across time, the data, are we going to see more young people coming up saying, I just never had it in the house. My parents didn't drink. It wasn't a thing for us. And so they're just maybe not going to be adopting it. I look forward to seeing that research come out.
Me too, you know, and I think there's just so many options now out there. You know, there's sober raves and sober bars, and there's so many new, you know, non-alcoholic drinks and mocktails and stuff like that. So I can't wait. I mean, I think honestly, alcohol is going to go the way of cigarettes. It's just as bad for you. Even 1 or 2 a day is just as bad for you, especially for women with our breast cancer risk, heart disease, all those kinds of things. And I do think that in the coming years, there's just going to become more information out there available and more young people choosing to, you know, not drink the poison.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And what's cool is on your blog, you also have like a whole section on mocktails and your thoughts on non-alcoholic beers and wines. And that's kind of interesting because when I first got sober, I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, I got a DUI, and the next day I'm not drinking anymore. Like that was just, you know, I knew that was my rock bottom, and I knew that I couldn't then go and buy alcohol in front of my then boyfriend and be like, I'm just going to keep drinking. It was like, no, I knew that was my rock bottom, but I had absolutely no tools or resources or skills or any kind of knowledge around what I was supposed to do. So I immediately started drinking 0% non-alcoholic Beck's beer. That was the one that was introduced to me by a friend. And honestly, it helped me so much in those first few shaky weeks and couple of months where I would drink like 6, 7, 8, 10 of them in a night. I would drink them the way I drank Corona, with, out of the bottle with a lime, turned upside down. Like I went through those same rituals that I had been, going through when I was drinking alcohol. And I just found that it really helped get me through the hump. Now, I know that that's not the case for a lot of people. They find it's way too close in taste and it's triggering for them, and it works completely the opposite. But for me, it really was a valuable tool. So I wonder, do you drink non-alcoholic beer or wine?
Yeah, and I think there was a time when it was more necessary, and now it's just kind of something to have for fun or to experiment with. But it's true, because when you decide to remove alcohol in your life, to then also completely remove the habit of coming home after work or on the weekend and relaxing with a drink, right? It's this kind of signal that we give our brain. It's now permission to relax.
Yeah.
And to completely get rid of that habit at the same time and go just completely cold turkey, I think is very challenging. And sometimes, we do drink out of the sense that we want to be treated, or we deserve something. And in a way, I think non-alcoholic beers and other mocktails or other kind of, fancy sparkly waters can completely do that trick at first. I totally agree that, if someone's pining away for a pizza and beer and they're trying really hard to stay sober, then go get your non-alcoholic beer. And I think, since they're not alcoholic, it's very hard to then continue for years on years to drink 7 a night, right? I mean, that kind of passes, naturally on itself.
You're so right. It just, self-selects itself out of there. That's exactly what happened to me. I mean, I was drinking however many, 7, 8, 9 of them in an evening. And then it quickly went to 2 or 3. And then it very quickly, like within a few months, I don't think I had one again. And I've had what I've been, I got sober 16 years ago, and I can probably count on 2 hands the number of non-alcoholic beer or wine that I've had in that 16-year period. But it really, at that beginning stage, it was such a helpful tool for me. It really, really helped. But again, for everybody watching, that has to be something that feels right for you. But just to know, there are a lot of groups like AA and others that really condemn non-alcoholic beer and wine. And for me, it was important that I chose one that was 0%. But even the 0.5% ones, some people do really well with those too. And I think that if you're looking at either drinking, or feeling the deprivation from not drinking, or choosing one of these non-alcoholic options that you'd have to drink 50 of to even get anywhere close to any kind of a buzz, that might be a tool for you too. And I wouldn't want anybody to feel too much shame or guilt around it to therefore then not choose it if it was something that could really help them on their journey.
Yeah. And there's so many great options now. Like there's breweries that are sprouting up that are dedicated just to non-alcoholic options, craft breweries, so they're really, I think, changing even the landscape of what's cool to drink. I think they're going to be coming out in health and yoga festivals and marathons and stuff like that. And also to really give people who maybe haven't quit yet, but maybe don't like the effects of alcohol in their life, other options, so that that night before the business meeting or the night they do just want to sleep well, we have other options.
That's such a great point. Like, not everybody, of course, people watching this, podcast are typically people in recovery, but not everybody in the world is in recovery or is, even in that mindset at all, but that they just want to have the taste of a beer without the alcohol of it. Like, why is that? Or, a glass of wine that tastes somewhat decent, because so far most of them are terrible, but I also haven't tried any in a long time. So maybe they've come a long way. All right. So let's get into your story. I want to get you to take us back, because what I really was drawn to with you, Karolina, is that like Jolene Park, who came on the podcast, it's like you didn't have to necessarily hit this crash and burn, everything in your life falling apart for you to be able to look at alcohol and go, wait a minute, maybe there is another way. And so I really wanted to have your experience shared so that we could see that side. So I want you to start back as far back as makes sense. So maybe in your childhood, if things came up in childhood for you that when you got sober, you look back on and said, maybe that's where some things started changing for me. And then work your way all the way through your story up until when you decided to quit drinking, and then obviously got on this new adventure with Euphoric and with all the other wonderful things that you're doing. And then I know you have an amazing program that you've just started, so we're going to talk about that at the end. So whenever you're all set, the floor is yours.
Awesome. Wonderful. All right, let's get started at the very beginning then. So I first discovered alcohol probably in my high school years, and I remember beginning to regularly drink it as not just like a one-off thing about my senior year in high school. And I always considered myself an introvert. I thought I was very shy. I thought I was kind of awkward, and I also needed a lot of me time and a lot of like solitude. And it was really hard to counterbalance that because during the day, I wanted to be on my own and do a lot of reading and do a lot of studying. And then here, alcohol kind of came into my life and gave me this kind of excuse that I needed for human connection. And I'd go out to parties and I'd meet new people. And I could be this gregarious version of myself that I didn't kind of find, naturally at that time. So I latched on quickly. And at that time, of course, it kind of really did help with my self-esteem. I remember going to college and just wanting to completely reinvent myself, completely be, this bubbly kind of popular person. I wanted to be the life of the party. So
like, can I stop you? Did you have those thoughts in your mind? Like, I'm going off to college. I want to be a totally different person. Like, did you think about that before going? Or is that something that you realized in retrospect that is why you picked up alcohol?
I mean, I don't know about, did I make the association to alcohol or not, but definitely to going off to college, kind of rewrite my story. I don't have to be this shy introvert. I don't have to be someone that doesn't have a lot of friends. I can be a different version of myself. And then alcohol, of course, came into play with that. And then it was another thing too, is that I remember seeing people first drinking in college and like having maybe one or two drinks and acting totally drunk. And that I also didn't want to be that person, right? So I was like, I want to learn to hold my liquor. I need to be able to tolerate it. So I learned to drink quite a bit in my college years because of this idea of what I wanted myself to be, which clearly just kind of fed into my, habit of drinking and wasn't a good thing.
So when you say that you trained yourself, like, did you literally try to build up tolerance by being alone and drinking and doing like experiments, or were you just going out regularly, drinking more and more and more?
Just regularly. I just didn't want to be someone who acted drunk or just like couldn't kind of hold my liquor. So yeah, I kind of prided myself on that in a way.
Oh, I think that's such a common story for so many of us. We prided ourselves on being able to drink the men under the table if you're a woman, or to keep up with all of these people. I mean, what a crazy thing to pride ourselves on. But anyway, okay, so you're in college, you're building up your tolerance, you're drinking regularly. Keep going.
Yeah, and so I would actually say that in college and afterwards in grad school was the heaviest I ever drank in my life. And it got to a point where not only was I partying a lot, but I had absolutely kind of zero coping skills as an adult. And I was really scared to become an adult. I didn't know how to do it. I graduated around the time of the recession. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I just wanted to stay in school. And I did. I went to grad school right away. I was dealing with a really bad breakup at that time. So around then, my party kind of lifestyle also really came home with me. And I was drinking quite a lot back then and just had no grounding, no kind of sense of direction, not really anything like that. I think if I would have stayed in that lifestyle, I would have probably easily had that stereotypical story that many people do when they find themselves here. But luckily, I kind of had a confluence of events that kind of steered me away from that. First, I met my future husband. I started my career, and I noticed that I had gained a lot of weight from all that drinking I was doing. So I immediately kind of embarked on this healthier lifestyle. I didn't like drinking during the week and waking up hungover for work. And also my husband was a lighter drinker than I. So, that just naturally kind of cut back. We started running together. We started juicing and things like that. And basically for the next 7 years, I found myself in this phase called the moderation illusion. I basically just thought, as long as I drink on the weekend, as long as I, keep it responsible and do it in a more adult way, I can keep drinking. This is fine. And I did. And in a way, it definitely worked, as in I didn't drink as much at all. I was at the last few years, probably averaged around 10 to maybe 14 drinks a week, which of course is way above the health guidelines, but I just never saw it as like that kind of stereotypical problem drinking, right? But at the same time, I didn't like any of the negative effects that I felt as drinking. As I got older, I got even more health-minded, even more soul-minded. I was eating my fruits and vegetables. I was going to yoga classes. And this is this kind of like healthy Jekyll and Hyde lifestyle that I had. You know, there's part of me during the week that was healthy and feeling great and productive. And then come every weekend, I still had this habit, this need to let loose and drink, whether that was going to a brewery with friends or, you know, maybe just having some wine at home with a movie. And by Monday morning, I just felt horrible. I mean, like, it was the absolutely worst. I was not only probably hungover, but I also felt this sadness that for a long time I just couldn't explain. It was feeling almost like I was having an existential crisis every Monday morning. Like, what am I doing myself?
Can I just interrupt you? Can I ask, when you met your husband, your future husband, when you were dating, were you ever trying to like keep a lid on how much you were drinking or not really share with him how important alcohol was to you? Or did that really not factor into your relationship at all? Because you were saying he was kind of a lighter drinker. I know for me, whenever I dated people who didn't drink the way I drank, that was kind of scary for me because I knew that they would be able to notice how much more I drank. And then I would have to come up with strategies on how can I drink the way I want to drink and the volume that I want to drink without tipping them off.
Yeah. So, I mean, we still drink together, so it wasn't like that scary for that version of myself yet. But it also just stopped me from like having any kind of dishonest moments with him. Like, I didn't want to go behind his back and have another drink if he wasn't going to have one, because then I knew I would feel shame and bad about myself in that way. So it stopped me from wanting to not, you know, veer into that territory where I would hide anything kind of from him, and just we'll drink when we drink, we don't drink when we don't drink. And I kind of just was okay with that. Again, also with trying to be healthier and all those kinds of things.
Okay. So you would wake up on Monday mornings feeling awful, feeling hungover, feeling the shame and just that, all of those other feelings. Keep going.
Yeah. And so basically I was like, all right, I'm not doing it right. I have to set up all of these rules in my life. I have to really get my, you know, moderation under control so I can prevent these feelings. And so the years that I lived with these kind of rules was just insane. You know, definitely no more than 3 drinks, which, you know, of course was being broken occasionally, or, you know, more or not. No more than 7 drinks a week, I was thinking, right? Because I want to stay under those health guidelines, which was impossible for me, even though I only drank around the weekend. I mean, I usually had 3 drinks, you know, each day. So that was really hard. You know, don't drink until 7 p.m. or else you'll have more than you want to. And then I even got to a point where, because I think I was getting older and I was drinking less and not, you know, having these moments of abstinence during the week, that my body really hated the effect of alcohol, you know, when I first would drink it. I remember having maybe like 2 beers at a time, or 2 glasses of wine at a time, and having the worst hangover the next day, like a headache and just like feeling horrible. And then there was like a part of myself that was like, wait, I can't even have 2 drinks and not wake up feeling okay. Like, that's ridiculous, right?
Especially when you had done such a good job of building up your tolerance in college. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. And so I got to the point where like, it didn't even matter if I did follow my rules, because inevitably the next day I felt worse for wear, no matter what, you know what I mean? So it just got to a point where either way, drinking made me feel bad. And, you know, and of course there was the times when I really overdid it. I mean, I would go to a party or, you know, a dinner party, and I had absolutely no intentions of getting drunk. I would want to pace myself, you know, drink a lot of water in between. But inevitably, you know, I got to that point of, you know, having a drink every hour, maybe for 4 or 5 hours, and I got drunk and I embarrassed myself, and I woke up the next day just with shame, you know, shriveling down my spine. And those moments were really heart-wrenching for me.
Those are, I think, for all of us, those tough moments where it's like we have the rules built around it. We really believe that we can handle this thing, that it hasn't taken over our lives. And sometimes that is the case and we're okay. And then other times we go into those situations feeling those same feelings and we embarrass ourselves, humiliate ourselves, you know, hurt other people, whatever the case may be. And then all of that shame comes into play. So you basically quit by doing a dry January. Is that right?
Yeah, that's true. So, I mean, I think I could say that I had this cognitive dissonance around my drinking of this love-hate, at least 5 years. And I had kind of tried to do more abstinent periods. Like, I would do maybe 7 days every month. I would try to like take a weekend off and a whole week off. But at the same time, so I kind of like was dipping my toe into this world. But at the same time, I didn't see myself as that stereotype problem drinker. And I didn't think I was allowed to quit. I didn't think that was for me. And it was kind of a pride I also had that was just like, well, I'm not exactly like that, am I? Like, I do moderate sometimes. I do, have a pretty responsible life. I just didn't kind of relate to, the stereotype that I had seen around me. And again, I just didn't think I was really allowed to quit. That would signal to society something that I was like a defect or something.
Oh, I love this point, and I want to sit here for a minute with it, just because I think for so many people who are thinking of, alcohol just doesn't make me feel great. I keep trying to moderate. It just doesn't quite work for me. I have a couple glasses of wine and feel like shit in the morning. Like, but I can't quit, or else everyone will call me an alcoholic. And that is never going to be a label that I want to wear. So I guess I just have to keep drinking. Like, it's crazy what society has done to us, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think that fear is so rife, and even, I mean, it's so apparent even at the smallest social occasion. Like, I had someone tell me the other day that they ordered a lemonade at a restaurant, and the person next to them at the bar actually looked at them and said, "Are you an alcoholic?" Like, that's crazy. And it really gets to the point that, like, hopefully one day it's actually seen the same as, like, not eating meat or not smoking cigarettes. It's anyone with any kind of drinking habit, any kind of drinking experience is allowed to make empowering and healthy lifestyle choices for themselves. That's self-care, that's self-love. And you don't have to tick the boxes of, an addiction or an alcohol dependence, to get there. And it's also really hard to figure out who has a problem and who doesn't, because, if we're talking about physical addiction to alcohol, they say only 10% of heavy drinkers ever get physically addicted.
If that many. So absolutely, good point.
So that's hard to determine. I mean, that's probably most people aren't in that box. And then when you ask yourself if you're emotionally addicted, well, if you come to rely on alcohol in all these situations in your life and you need it in those situations, I mean, isn't everyone that's a drinker in some shape or form a little bit emotionally addicted to alcohol?
Well, that's like in my work where I share where people will say, I'm an emotional eater. It's like, we all are. We eat to celebrate. We eat when we get broken up with. We eat when we're sad. We eat when we're happy. Like, it's the same thing with alcohol. We use it in a very similar way.
Yeah. So trying to just figure out if I had a problem or not was never going to be answered. I couldn't fit myself into either, label A or label B. It was too binary. My experiences were way too, gradient and diverse to be able to put myself into that kind of box. But thankfully, Dry January came around, and I saw it in a different way. I saw it as a health challenge. It was something that didn't have the shame and the stigma kind of attached to it. I was so fed up with all of my kind of excuses and my this kind of dichotomy of living that I had gone through, this Jekyll and Hyde kind of scenario, that I embarked on it. And I really found myself kind of discovering myself during the month of January. I went on a lot of hikes. I played board games with my husband. I was finding myself enjoying even the smallest kind of situations and games, and being okay with that feeling of just being in my own skin, I guess.
Whew. I mean, for most of us who have made the decision to quit drinking, and maybe not using like a Dry January where it's more of a health challenge where you kind of see 31 days and, it's kind of like I can do anything for 31 days. For people that maybe are thinking about this as a lifestyle, do you think that that's different? Like, I wonder if those feelings are different, and if maybe you wouldn't have, obviously you continued with the Dry January into February and March and beyond. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on that. Do you think that that's possible, that people can kind of look at it that different way?
I think actually experimenting takes so much pressure off, because you're right. Anyone can do anything for 31 days. And when you see it like that, and you're having a really intense craving or you're feeling deprived, all you need to do is tell yourself, okay, like, just get through this. You can drink later. Don't worry about it. And I think when you set yourself up to quit for life, sometimes for some people keep putting that off, right? Like, they decide because they feel super hungover, and then 3 days later, they're like, that was a little crazy. I'll try that next week, right? So they keep putting it off, and they don't really get to like embrace the full lifestyle. So I really do support the kind of idea of experimenting with sobriety, because why not? What's there to lose? You literally might fall in love with your new life. The pressure's off. You get to be more of like a curious scientist of, what really makes you happy? Why do you react a certain way you do? what really sets you off. A lot of journaling can happen to really kind of reevaluate the role of alcohol in your life. And actually, I did go back to alcohol back in February. I drank a few times, and coming from this kind of very introspective mindset that I had been developing, I was able to cue in on things that I never noticed about alcohol before.
Like
I mean,
what?
So I drank pretty moderately in February, but I noticed one time I had one drink, and then 20 minutes later, I felt such an impatience, such a frustration, such a just like, get me out of here, I need like something else right now kind of feelings that were so intense and so antithetical to what I was experiencing with this kind of grateful presence I had developed in January.
And that feeling was not, I want another drink?
I mean, a bit of that, but also just this like uncomfort. It was this like, I mean, I guess scientifically what is happening is you're coming down from the first drink, and it's very uncomfortable. You have stress hormones going through your body. And I was really able to clue into that feeling that all alcohol provides is maybe a short-lived 15-minute buzz, and then everything after that is only going to feel worse than before you had that first drink.
Oh, totally. It reminds me of Alan Carr in Easy Way to Stop Smoking. It's like, the stress that we talk about cigarettes being such a great stress reliever, but yet they are the causer of all the stress. And then of course you need one to then relieve that stress. So you look at it like, oh, see how it relieves my stress. It's like, yeah, but you wouldn't have had all that stuff causing you all that stress had you been a non-smoker anyway. So, oh
and
my
it's so
gosh.
true about alcohol too, because yes, it's a depressant, but at the same time, to be homeostasis in our body releases its own like stress hormones and stimulants to counter the alcohol. And that's why people feel so, kind of, they come down a little bit after the first drink. That's why they feel jittery and kind of need relief, right? At the end of the day. I mean, that's it. So you wouldn't have an edge that you need to take off if you, weren't a drinker in the first place.
For sure.
And to discover that, on your own as that really experimental basis, I think was really great. So after I drank in February, again, even one drink would ruin my sleep. It was just crazy, the black and white of how I felt. I embarked back onto kind of a challenge mindset. I said I'd do another month. And then from there, my month turned into, 90 days and then 100 days. And then I actually had a vacation plan for Japan. And I had given myself permission to drink on that vacation because I planned it before. I had I wanted to do sake breweries and all this kind of cultural stuff that I thought drinking fit in. And when I got there, I just knew that all of this sense of appreciation I'm feeling, all of this gratitude, all of this kind of wonder that I'm rediscovering in the world, all of that will go away the second I have a drink. It's not worth it. This kind of lie that I've been believing that traveling is a way to experience, local drinking culture, that's bull. Every single time I had, a vacation with drinking, there was inevitably low points to that. And so that was a huge myth that I finally debunked, that traveling and drinking go hand in hand. I didn't drink on that trip, and then I came back and just dedicated myself to taking this experiment all the way.
That is an awesome story. And I think that you should start a company where you teach people how to go on sober vacations and how they can enjoy themselves and have fun with that. I'm curious, I know I keep asking about your husband. Did he join you in Dry January, and does he live an alcohol-free lifestyle as well?
Yeah, so he didn't at that point. And around maybe 6 months into my sobriety, he actually went on his own 2-month kind of challenge. So he did 2 months. And I was so happy for that. And it was a way to support me, I think, but also in a way to kind of discover what it is I'm talking about and kind of get on the same wavelength of, what goes on. And so that's been really great. And he now today, I think he's doing Dry January. Oh, he's doing Dry January this year. And he's really cut back on his drinking. He usually just has a little bit maybe when he's out socializing with friends. So for the most part, our entire relationship has changed because it's no longer our pastime, it's no longer the highlight of a Friday night. We have so much more fun things to do.
Can I ask you, what are some of the fun things that you like to do on a Friday night when other people your age are out at the clubs, they're out partying, they're having dinner parties? What are you up to?
Yeah, so just this past weekend, we went to the symphony, which was really fun. It's actually my passion for classical music is something that's like being rediscovered now as I'm not drinking. It's announcing itself, as a true passion of mine. We went to the zoo this past weekend, where Also training for a half marathon together. So we go on a lot of running dates, which is really fun. We travel a lot, quite a bit. So, and we just find way more zest in life and way more just even being comfortable with ourselves and our own vulnerability, without this kind of mask of alcohol in the way.
Oh, I love the way you put that, the mask of alcohol. It's so true. We think that it is the truth serum. We think that it's who we really are when we can shed those layers and, tell you how we really feel. And it's like, it's such bullshit. It is not the truth of who we really are. I really do believe that we can do such great work when we eliminate all of these things in our lives, the food, the drugs, the sex, not all the sex, but I'm just saying, like, using it as an addiction. When we can eliminate some of these things, peel away some of these layers, we really do get closer and closer to who we really are and what we really love and what we value and what we're passionate about. So I am so excited to know that you are on this path, that you're doing such great work in the world. Tell us a little bit about the program so first of all, how long have you been sober? And then I want you to tell us about this new program that you've launched.
Sure. So my 1-year sobriety is coming up in about a month.
Amazing.
So I'm very excited for that. Every month I feel like I've discovered something new. At first, the first few months, it was all kind of the physical benefits were coming back, my energy, my sleep, my happiness was surging. And then I really found my drive and my ambition being kicked up. I think so many of us have alcohol as an Achilles heel. And when we can kind of finally not only quit drinking, but also kind of smash these self-limiting beliefs that we believed about ourselves, in regards to alcohol, like I'm no fun without it, I can't relax without it, I can't socialize without it. It just gives you the confidence to smash other self-limiting beliefs you have about yourself. I never in a million years thought I'd be sharing my story or would start a podcast or would start a business. And all of those things are a direct result of just the confidence that happened when you quit drinking. I also love all the connections I've made in the sober community. That has been such a fulfilling, dream of mine to have, a network of friends that really have like kind of a like-minded, soulful kind of mission in life. And that's another thing. I didn't even think I could make friends as an adult. I thought like you make your bonds when you're younger. It was, really hard to do that for me. So that's another kind of self-limiting belief that I've just smashed.
Well, and also because you were somebody that had been shy as a kid. So I imagine then when we take away alcohol, you're back to being more vulnerable. But look what it did. Instead of, keeping you small, it allowed you to really spread your wings and fly. It's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm so happy to celebrate 1 year in about a month in February 2018. 19, you're right. And then at the same time, the whole journey I had was this experiment, this kind of being a curious scientist in my own life and really getting in tune with my own deeper desires, my own deeper wants, my own deeper interests. And I kind of took everything that I personally learned along in my journey and all the things kind of I read and learned about and put together my own program. It's called Become Euphoric. And it's a 2-month program to kind of discover yourself outside of alcohol and really find what makes you truly happy and what you really want to do with your life. Because I think quitting alcohol for most people is just the very first thing. It just lays the foundation for everything else to line up for you to build your dream life.
Oh, I totally agree with you. You talked about it being like the Achilles heel. It's like once you get rid of that, like that monkey on your back or however you want to visualize it, then all of a sudden it's like, now what? Your whole life is available to you. So is your 2-month program an online program or in person? How does it work?
Yeah, so it's an online self-paced course. It's 60 days. Each week we have like a new kind of theme that we go over, from mindfulness to more awareness of your thoughts to really listening to your inner guide versus like your ego or kind of societal conventions around you, how to socialize, how to deal with your inner critic, how to discover new passions, and then really discover your purpose and your calling in life.
Oh my gosh, it sounds amazing. So tell us, how can people find you? Where do they learn more about your podcast, your blog, your program? What's the best place to find you?
Sure. So I called my blog Euphoric Alcohol Free, and for short, the domain is www.euphoricaf.com.
Perfect. So everyone can find all the information there. Before I let you go, I want to ask you a few more questions. You've shared a little bit about the tools that have really helped you in recovery, but including classical music and fitness and wellness and eating well and all of that. But are there any other tools that you haven't shared that you'd like us to hear about?
Yeah, I really think I think you really need to get deep down into a greater awareness of what's going on and to be really introspective and reflective about your own kind of needs and desires is so key. It's crazy what you can uncover. It's kind of like an onion. It just peels back the layers of our own needs and our own desires that we weren't even really aware of because we were drinking over them. We were numbing our thoughts and our emotions instead of dealing with them. And the thing is that, it's not euphoric every single day, right? There's still bad days. But when you actually go through and feel your feelings and discover what it is, that upset you or that you need at that moment or that, you need to change in your life, the next day you built up so much more resiliency and so much more strength that the next time a situation comes like that, you'll be able to handle it better. And the things that seem so hard and so monumental start slowly becoming, not so scary anymore. And you get this kind of drive, I think, to kind of do the baby steps every day to kind of put you on the path of your dream life. Mm-hmm. And so discovering that for me has been very monumental, to really always be in tune with myself, always be doing so much journaling, asking myself tough questions, and not being scared of resistance and uncomfortability. Because when I think everyone's scared of quitting drinking, right? And yet when you embrace that and that fear and charge ahead anyway, because your inner guide's telling you that you'll probably be happier without it, miracles literally happen on the other side of fear.
Yeah, truly. Miracles happen on the other side of fear. I feel like everything is on the other side of fear. Everything's on the other side of awareness. Everything's on the other side of change. Everything's on, if you can just go to that, take a bird's eye view of your life and look at it and see what could possibly be there on that other side. You've got to get rid of those things that are holding you back. So can I ask you, is your process then, when you ask yourself these questions, is it through journaling? Do you ask yourself questions that you write down and then contemplate and then go back and write the answer? How does it actually play out in your life?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, it's definitely a lot of journaling. And in the program itself, we have journal prompts throughout every single day. I also do morning pages, which is a technique from Julia Cameron to discover more creativity in your life. Basically, you just wake up and write 3 pages of just uninterrupted thoughts, and a lot of it's really petty concerns and really getting at the stresses of your life that day and kind of uncovering all that kind of baggage so that the real creativity and the real kind of insights can come out and can make kind of changes and impact in a faster way than being kind of bogged down by, kind of more petty concerns. So I love that.
That's a great tool. I really like that one too. All right. I have another question for you. What would you say is the best thing about being sober?
Discovering who you really are. And it will surprise you because you will change and transform. I think we are all masterpieces and really know the art of transformation so well. And when you remove the drinking from your life, your sense of love improves, your sense of well-being improves, your sense of connection with other human beings improve, your interests announce themselves. You stop settling for the BS in your life. And you really discover what you want and what you need, and you strive for bigger and better. You show up fully, and I think that's who we were meant to be. And alcohol that whole time was just getting in the way, or was a great learning experience to get you on the path you are now.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with both of those statements. Definitely when we talk about it, getting out of our own way, just allowing us to be who we really are, but for sure not living with, for me personally, I don't live with any regret about what all of the things that I had to go through to bring me to where I am today. I feel like it was all divinely, created. It was co-created. It was all meant to be. And even the terrible, shitty, awful things that happened in my life, it's like, you know what? Those were all there to teach me something. I think that the only time that they can be seen as or perceived as negatives is when we just don't learn the lesson. So I think it's all about life being a lesson. So speaking of Oprah sayings, because she talks about her life being a class, I borrow this last question from Oprah. Karolina, what do you know for sure?
I know for sure that I didn't come here to just trudge through, I don't know, existence with this malaise and this insecurity and this disconnection and this isolation. I know that I came here to expand my own soul, to grow love and connection with others, and share my light with the world.
Oh my goodness, beautiful. Thank you so much. You certainly do share your light. Thank you for sharing it with us today.
Thank you so much.
To get access to all of the free videos and interviews, visit sobrietystartshere.com.